Call to order the City of Milton Common Council meeting Tuesday, February 7th, 2017 at 7 p.m. Can I get confirmation of appropriate meeting notice?
The meeting was noticed here at City Hall, Piggly Wiggly, and Dave's Ace Hardware.
Item number 2, approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? We have an agenda. Dave's on. I can hear him.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Dave.
Item number 3, public comments regarding items which can be affected by council action. Do we have anybody signed in? Oh, okay. Okay. So, the Milton House, you're going to talk on your agenda item. Okay. Item number 4, approval of the, okay, yes, we do want to. Inga. I don't know if you all are aware that the Milton House has actually been featured on two networks, one from Milwaukee and one from Rockford. I don't know if we have both of them.
Yep, I found the Milwaukee one.
Okay, so that one just came out, but we wanted to show these to you because it's really pretty exciting. And if you didn't get a chance to see them, then you can see these tonight. Go.
It wasn't actually a railroad at all, but a series of safe national landmark in Rock County still serves as a reminder of this. The Milton House. Safe house for escaped slaves headed to Canada. Begin. They were abolitionists who believed it was their duty to help fugitive slaves.
The basement where they could be safe. They also arranged for them to be conducted to other stations in the Underground Railroad as they were underpacked through.
Cabin built in 1837 served as the entrance and an exit point for the Underground Railroad. Inside the cabin, a root cellar holds a secret passageway to the basement of the hotel. For years, the 45-foot-long tunnel has been modernized for tourism. More than 150 years ago, it would have been a much different experience.
For somebody traveling through at the time, it would have been dark, earthen, probably smelly and cold and very scary.
Most Underground Railroad stops were on private property, many of which no longer exist, making the Milton House a rare monument to an historic movement.
We have a cabin tunnel.
Since it was highly illegal to be a station manager, they didn't leave behind written records. Today is based on oral history. The significance of Milton House is clear when people who control it.
And when we get into the tunnel and up it went through very slowly, with the feeling of the wall. That kind of reaction is just makes you understand.
Along with other visitors who come simply to see a piece of history, a difficult but important part of America's past, when men and women risked their lives so others could live free. Historic landmark in 1998. The story will be part of a Black History Month special we're producing. It's a look at the hidden history of the Black experience.
tunnel itself is about 45 feet long, and it was always a secret passageway. That's what's important to understand.
It is still overpowered. 170 years ago, at the height of the Underground Railroad, it was half as tall, carved out of dirt, and in total darkness.
Maybe a child could walk through standing up, but an adult would have had to crawl or stoop.
Willing to risk everything, the slave hideaway was built by town founder and abolitionist Joseph Goodrich, not long after he opened his bustling hotel and depot.
This is the most public place anywhere. Like, what a terrible place to hide.
In its heyday, it was the post office, a hub for 26 passenger trains and 37 stagecoaches coming in every day.
On the surface, the Milton House was a quaint place to stay overnight, for people free to go wherever they wanted to go. And not far from where they slept was a secret shelter tunneled out for the sake of runaway slaves from the South on a death-defying trek to freedom.
The Goodrich family could see the cabin from their rooms at the Milton House. They saw it as a pathway to hope.
The cellar was where they slept, the passage is where they hid if they had to hide, but this was always the entry and exit point. It was dark, and as you can feel even right now, even the winter months, it must have been very cold, but safe.
Safe until the next stop. The walls of this truly rare underground hideaway display wanted posters, manacles, a manifest of inhumanity.
To show you there's no depth to which they would not sink, lot number 15 is a girl named Hannah. She's 2 months old. She is a baby for sale.
Sacks of potatoes are a new addition to this National Historic Landmark, thanks to a just now unearthed account of long ago gumption.
She was quite a peppy girl and spoke her mind freely.
Edna Dearborn, now 89, living in Racine, is the proud great-granddaughter in this picture taken in Milton.
This is my great-grandmother Lunch, the one who went with her father to pick up the slaves who were fleeing from the South.
When Edna was around 12, her great-grandmother shared her role in the underground. Memories of harrowing 8-mile trips with fugitive slaves hiding under sacks of potatoes.
I can't imagine how horrible and how scary and how frightening and the consequences.
And this is a story we hadn't heard before.
Author of a new book on the Milton House, Doug Welch says the story checks out. Edna's great-grandmother's father was a Seventh-day Baptist pastor, recruited by Goodrich.
They didn't believe themselves heroes for helping people try to get to freedom.
When Edna was 12, she toured this space before it was renovated.
It's guns in life.
She's honored her family's role in history has come to light.
I'm proud of all those relatives because they stood up for respectable things, being good citizens.
WYSN 12 celebrates Black History, brought to you by U.S. Bank.
Jerry, it's just...
Great job. Very emotional, very moving. Item number 4, approval of the consent agenda. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Item number 5, public hearing and discussion and possible action regarding approval of Resolution 2017-01, final resolution vacating portion of South Janesville Street and the amending official city map.
Hi, folks, remember last fall we had a discussion about the potential vacation of a portion of South Janesville Street. Mr. Turnus, who owns the property that directly adjoins the right-of-way in question, approached the city of Milton and requested, and asked if we would be willing to vacate that portion of right-of-way that directly adjoins his property. This portion of right-of-way was previously used by the DOT as part of the former Highway 26 alignment that runs through the center of the city. After that project was completed and Highway 26 was moved to its new alignment on the edge of town, that portion of right-of-way was no longer necessary or needed. Mr. Turnus has asked that portion of right-of-way be vacated and then transferred to his property, in order to make his property larger and more appropriate for potential redevelopment or potential sale in the future. There's no public utility to that piece of land at this time, and in fact, it actually takes a little bit of land off of our hands that we need to maintain. We reviewed this request earlier on, or in the fall of 2016, and this is the final step of the process in order to effectuate that vacation. Would be to hold the public hearing, and if there's any comments, certainly can take those into consideration. And then once the public hearing is closed, certainly can answer any questions. But again, like I said, the legal aspect of it requires this final step, but all paperwork and everything else has been completed at this point.
So I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this? Okay, so I will close the public hearing, seeing no one, and this can come back to the council for discussion or comment. It was passed by the Planning Commission.
Correct.
So is there any questions or concerns or comments the council has?
The only comment that I have is I have asked Mr. Turnius in prior Plan Commission meetings when I was citizen and council representative to think about maybe adding some more landscaping. And I'm just kind of wondering, I know that he meets the minimum requirements, but I think that he's considering part of that field in the back of that property. And considering that that's one of our entrances into the city, I was kind of hoping that we could just maybe ask nicely if he would consider doing a little more landscaping and just kind of dressing it up a little bit.
We certainly can ask him. Yep. This action would not trigger a requirement or a site plan review, which would then warrant that, but we certainly can ask Mr. Turnus that. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2017-01, final resolution vacating portion of South Janesville Street and amending official city map.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Item number 6, discussion and possible action on a potential development agreement with the Milton House Museum. There was a memo included in your packet that gave you some background information, and I think we have representatives that would like to speak on behalf of item number 6.
Okay, sorry. Thank you guys for having me here. I wanted to actually address one issue with you, and that is, as you may be aware, the Milton Historical Society has taken on a capital campaign to address several pressing preservation issues on our campus. We have a big to-do list, and funds we have raised so far will be put towards 3 major projects that we seek to complete in 2017. One of the main 3 is a long-deferred and much overdue project, and that is to repave the existing parking lot. A repaved lot will provide easier, more convenient access to the Historical Society, but more importantly, it will improve the overall aesthetic of the museum, which is Milton's #1 tourist attraction, as well as the North Goodrich Park area. A very generous benefactor has approached the society and pledged money toward this project in particular. But unfortunately, the funds pledged cannot cover the entirety of the project. As this pledge donation is not intended to be transferred to any other project, we are looking into every avenue possible to get it completed. And we feel a repaved lot is the one project that will give back the most to our community. I'm approaching you today to explore the possibility of entering into a developer's agreement with the City of Milton to help us get this project done.
Is it even really paved, or is it just gravel?
There is a fragment of asphalt that is visible.
It's like I'm thinking about the parking lot, and I'm like, I just don't recall that much pavement being there.
Long deferred. There's a very small section of asphalt very near the building, but it is predominantly gravel. Back in pioneer times, though, that was considered a paved lot. Yeah.
And maybe soon by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, but.
Never know. To show you, though, that we are actively seeking to get this done, we are trying to install rain gardens, which will address one of the major issues, and that's drainage. With the new addition, one of the things they didn't have the foresight to see is that that new building creates a lot of rainwater, and it's been making the worst parking lot situation even more dire. We also are adding better lighting. Per Howie's recommendation, there needs to be much better lighting out there if we are paving that lot, so we are getting that installed. And we are trying to seek every avenue to get it done. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Are there any comments by council members regarding this? Concerns that you have? Are there any questions about using TIF money? This is not something that comes from our budget. This is TIF money that we would use. A very small portion of what we have available in this TIF. So,
Could you elaborate on this developers agreement?
Sure. What we would be looking for tonight is, we have the item listed as discussion, direction, and possible action. And what we'd be looking for tonight is direction from the city council, or permission, for lack of a better term, to enter into a developer's agreement with the Milton House. And effectively what that would look like, it would look like a developer's agreement, but you could also use the term memorandum of understanding or memorandum of agreement. You could use those terms somewhat interchangeably in this context. But ultimately what we would do is we'd enter into an agreement with the Milton House to say the Milton House pledges the amount of money as set aside by the benefactor in order to complete this construction project, and whatever the final cost of that project would be, which we would know through the bidding process, the city of Milton would come and fill in that gap. So we would know those figures when the development agreement came back before the council for final approval. There would need to be a final approval from the council before that document was actually effectuated. But tonight we're testing the waters to see if there's an interest. See if there's an interest from the council in pursuing this type of partnership with the Milton House. The final figures we don't have yet, but before we went too far, before we decided to start having conversations like this and starting doing bidding documents and engineering and things like that, we wanted to test the waters. We wanted to see if there was an appetite on the council for this type of partnership with the Milton House. The mayor's correct, it would require a degree of public funds. They would come from the TIF. It is an eligible TIF expense in the regards that we would be entering into an agreement with them to make an improvement to their facility. And the parking lot is one of those areas that has a public-esque component to it. So again, it's more so direction tonight, and again gauging the appetite of the council to enter into this kind of partnership. But the final development agreement would need to come back to this board to have final approval before it would actually become a done deal. But again, before we went that far and went through all that work, we wanted to make sure that there was, if folks wanted to pursue this type of partnership.
Go ahead.
Do we have any idea of, I know you don't have the cost, but a guess estimate about
We've had proposals prepared. Our engineering firm has worked with the Milton House and with city staff to prepare basically some engineering documents for the parking lot. And we have the base project, which would be simply to pave that gravel parking lot. And then we have some, maybe what we'd say the Cadillac, for lack of a better term, or...
He also described it as the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Say you get underneath that gravel and you find it is slurry.
Yeah.
It might require more fill. He was trying to plan for even the worst possible scenario. I don't want to say
Right.
Cadillac
Sure.
because
Yeah,
the way
yeah.
he put it is it's still just going to be a paved lot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that ranges between $30,000 and about $60,000 on the high end. But it's our belief that it's going to be much closer to that 30, and it's the engineer's belief that it's going to be much closer to that 30 as well.
But if we're gonna do it, let's do it right.
Right.
Let's not do it halfway and then 5 years from now, we have to redo it again.
Completely agree with you.
I
Absolutely.
mean, let's get the bids to do it the right way.
So part of this process too, and Maxine has kind of brought it up in her comments, is that we would like to make this project part of the city's overall 2017 pavement improvement program bidding process. And the concept behind that would be that we would hope to recognize economies of scale. We would have the opportunity for a bidder to come along and not only bid on the Milton House project, which in terms of a pavement project is a very small project. But what they would be bidding on is Merchant Row, Second Lane, and the Milton House project. And we would have the Milton House identified as an alternate to that bid. So for some reason, if the bids came back at $75,000, we could say, you know what, that's not going to work. We reject that alternate portion of the bid, and then that contractor could be awarded the bid for Merchant Row and Second Lane, and they could go on their merry way. And then we would have to go back to the Milton House, and we'd have to have a secondary conversation about, okay, what are the next steps? Do they go off on their own and do their own bidding process? Or do we look for some other mechanism in order to get them involved to hopefully capture those economies of scale? So another component of this is that the Milton House project will be part of the city's overall bid package for 2017 pavement improvement.
So what kind of research have they done? Because that parking lot has been terrible for a long time. My concern is, how hard have they looked at how far down they'll have to go?
Reasonable concern. We've had research on grading, just in general, what is the elevation? As I mentioned earlier, we know we need to address the rain gardens, as something you're describing is a direct result of that drainage coming directly off of the Milton House. So we're being proactive about that. My conversations, though, with the city engineer is it's one of those things where you're really not going to know until you get there. Unfortunately.
Old houses have that dilemma.
And older parking lots, too. It's pretty bad, but yeah.
And that need would be identified through the bid process.
Absolutely.
Any contractor that would bid on that project would investigate that, or to their peril, would bid low. And once they got into it, that's, we don't want that to be the case, though.
I think that the city getting behind the Milton House has been a long time coming, and I think that utilizing our TIF funds, which is exactly what these funds are for developmental purposes, is not only going to help out the Milton House, but it's also going to enhance one of our downtown areas. And I realize that this is our discussion here is pretty much just the Milton House. But our Milton House gets a lot of traffic, and it brings a lot of people to our downtown area, and that's how we keep our businesses from going out of business, is to keep them busy. I would support this 100%.
I do have a question for you. I assume that it's being taken account of the bus traffic. Has it been in the planning too?
Very much so.
I think it's actually a good idea. I think the longer you wait, the more worse it'll get until it's fully gravel rather than partially paved.
Mm-hmm.
And with heavy bus traffic on there, it might get worse even faster. So I think it's be a good idea to pave it so that we can, have a nice look to that side of the building, provide a nice look for all the schools that come here, for all the visitors that come here to see the city and the monument that we have in the city. And we look at our chicken barbecue as well, uses that area. So it would improve the visual of that land, I think, greatly.
What is the timing that you're looking at?
The sooner I could get it done, the happier I will be, but we are very much in the bidding process. I can't speak for all those X factors.
Right, and potentially Gary could even, I knew you came for a reason. You know, and even potentially Gary could comment on this, but if it was part of the city's overall bid package, this would likely be something that would move forward earlier this spring as far as the bidding process would go.
Very quick.
Yeah, and we would want to accommodate, we would want the construction of this to occur as soon as possible, ideally before chicken barbecue, you know.
Yeah, the only date is Civil War days that we
Yeah.
would say no. Other than that,
Yeah.
it's paid.
And if,
Yeah.
and if by some strike of lightning, we could have it done by Civil War days, we would absolutely try to do that too, but I don't know if that's realistic. I don't want to make promises that I don't have any control over, so. But we could do it relatively quickly. We've already had the engineering documents drawn up, so.
So my question for, probably more so for Gary, is because this is a historical monument, are there special people that do that type of work? I mean, do we have to go to somebody that is into historic preservation for those bids, just for the security of making sure that we don't damage any of the tunnel or anything like that?
Not in particular.
I did actually approach the State Historic Preservation Office about it last year when we were starting this, and they indicated, we'll take a look, but it's probably just fine.
I think the short answer to your question is no. You know, it would be, obviously, we're sensitive to that, but in this case, frankly, we'd have to see to Carrie and her expertise and her resources in order to confirm that that's the case. But this should be a relatively routine project for anybody who does the work.
Any other questions or comments? I just have a couple of things to say. First of all, this also is in line with our comprehensive planning.
That's correct.
You know, we put in hours and hours of designing and taking public comment and getting our comprehensive plan updated. And this is one of those things that everybody that was involved with it really valued, the historic nature of the city of Milton. So this is something that we can move forward on, knowing that the citizens value this and support this project. Second of all, and maybe it should have been first, is that it's important that we remember the history. And this really isn't just about the city of Milton. This is about our national history. That it's important that none of us ever forget. The reason we have the Milton House, the reason that there is abolitionists, is because our country was involved with slavery. And the people that escaped all the way up here from the South wanted to be paid a decent wage for their jobs. They wanted to have a home, and they wanted to take care of their families and to not be beat. And the ones that managed to escape became productive members of our society. So it's very honorable that we are talking about this during Black History Month. It's also important not to, be patting ourselves on the back that this was such a great thing, because the reason it is such a great thing is because our country had slavery. And that's something that it is all of our responsibilities to preserve that history for our country. It's not just for the city of Milton. It is not just for tourism. This is for our entire country. And I don't want the magnitude of that to be lost, because in the little city of Milton, we have the opportunity, the duty, and the obligation to preserve our country's history. And this is really a small thing to do, but something that, being a part of the city council on this date during Black History Month in 2017, you can be part of continuing this history and remembering, what the steps that were taken to get here today. So I'm looking forward to hearing how all of you vote. Is there a motion? Yeah, please do.
One of the thoughts I have as I'm listening is the transition from the modern back to the where the times were. It'd really be neat if somehow between the building and the parking, you would have a transitional walkway that's appropriate for the time. I realize.
Do you want to talk to me later, Larry? I have something to show you.
Okay, because I mean, I realize you probably wouldn't want cobbles or anything like that for the whole parking lot. But it'd be cool if you know, blend that, that's all I'm saying.
Just because they didn't have asphalt doesn't mean they wouldn't have used it if they could have.
I agree with that, I agree with that.
No.
But, you know, asphalt needs maintenance and all that too, and there might be something that you could put between, I don't know.
Well,
I'm not an expert on that.
but to what Anissa was saying earlier, it's, to me, it's not just a parking lot. It's access to a National Historic Landmark. When I see a mini pond forming in the middle of the parking lot, it makes me concerned, is this a message we can share with everybody who wants to come and see the place? I love what you're saying, though. I don't want you to think I don't, but a paved parking lot is the first step towards safer, more reliable access.
Is there any other comments or questions or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we pursue a developers agreement, that staff pursue a developers agreement and bring that back to council.
Could we make that a potential developers agreement that we're working to? For the Milton House?
Yes, for the Milton House.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further comment or discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for supporting us again, you guys.
This is not nearly as fun as number 6, but number 7. Discussion and possible action on resolution electing direct charge of fire protection.
Unfortunately, Dan's not here to present this information. He's down in Florida right now, so don't want anybody feel bad for him, but.
Could make him call in.
Right. I got his number. Last summer, the city council voted to have parcels within the city limits be subjected to a public protection fire charge. In order to effectuate that in advance of the March telephonic public hearing, we would need to file resolution 2017-03, which would establish that public protection fire fee as part of the regular water utility bill within the city of Milton. So in essence, this has already been approved by the council in concept, but we would need to adopt the resolution in order to establish it officially.
Is there a dollar amount tentatively on it?
There is a dollar amount, and it isn't tentative, it is set. And if Dan was here, I know he would be able to rattle it off immediately, but I don't know the dollar figure. I think it's $34.50, but don't quote me on that.
Per lot, per acre?
Per lot. And it would be on each bill.
Each every other month? Or
Every other month, yeah.
Every other month.
Yeah, yeah. But I will confirm that before that gets printed.
First I thought you said every other lot.
No.
I'm just, so it'd be
Odd
$34
days and
every
even
other
days.
month.
Yes.
It's to their tentative.
Right.
So what we have here, though, is just pretty much finishing up what we already started earlier on. This is just the paperwork that we have to get through to.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make so you don't need a motion?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2017-03, resolution electing direct charge of public fire protection.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further question or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8, discussion and possible action on ordinance 2017-428, an ordinance amending section 2-352, Tourism Development Committee of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Milton. And you have a memo in your packet that you were sent.
There isn't a memo, just the ordinance itself. I can be brief with this. There was some, an extensive amount of conversation that focused on the committees last September, and there was an extensive amount of conversation about this committee specifically last September when these were adopted. And believe it or not, despite the fact that we had that substantive conversation, there was an oversight during those conversations in which we did not include the Milton Area Chamber of Commerce Executive Director as a member of the Tourism Committee. It's a position that was always assumed, and that individual who held that seat always attended, but we never really put it in the actual ordinance itself. So as a matter of housekeeping, we would like to include that individual or his or her designee as an ex officio member of the Tourism Committee in order to make that official. So
I have a question.
The ex officio.
Whoops, sorry. The ex officio member is not allowed to vote. Is that correct?
that is correct. Yep.
Okay. And this is going to be an evolution of what has already been talked about, but I'm just wondering, we have 2 chamber representatives already on the council. Can we just designate one of those to be the director of the chamber, and then can we add an individual from the community, just add another outside person?
You can do whatever you want. I think, I mean, if you want me to cut to the chase, I think that's overcomplicating something that doesn't need to be complicated at all. Ultimately, what this is just establishing in writing what has been the expectation and the practice for as long as the Tourism Committee has been around. Yes, you could make the chamber person, the chamber director, a voting member, and then add another citizen. That would mess with the numbers, and you would go to an even number. And it just you can do whatever you want. I just.
Well, the reason that I'm asking is because Danny and all of our other former chamber directors have always been present, and their roles in the chamber are such that I just feel like they should be voting members. So if that means don't add that other citizen to the committee, I just feel like she should definitely have the opportunity, she or he should have that opportunity to vote. She does an excellent job of record keeping and brings everything to the meetings. I mean, we just don't get that. We don't get that a whole lot from some of the other people that come to the meeting.
I think the reason that we made them an ex officio member is because the Milton House is an ex officio member as well. So again, if we were to change, let's just say Danny, it would only make sense to also change Carrie then at that point. And again, that's fine. We can do that. But again, this ordinance was drafted to represent exactly what is currently transpiring and what has already transpired for a number of years. So again, I'm not saying you can't do it, and I'm not saying that we can't accommodate it. You can do whatever you want.
Well, and
I don't see any reason to complicate things any more than we have to.
Well,
Go with
Dave,
the proposal as it is.
when I first started working in the city, I was on the tourism committee, We actually had a member from the Parks Committee. We had a member from the Historical Society. We had chamber people. We even had some of the owners from the campgrounds. Because everybody in all of those different areas had different places of tourism aspects that not each other would be thinking of. And I know that through the years that has changed, but that was not a bad mix. It was not a bad mix to have those people on there. And I realize that we do definitely want to have chamber members on that committee. But to add those other areas, I mean, how many times could Parks and Rec, how many times would they have something that could be utilized or maybe needed to be promoted that maybe somebody from the Historical Society is not aware of? And, you know, as far as Carrie being a voting member, I see nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're all in this. This is all one group of people with the common goal, but each with its own different area. It's just a thought.
Well, we need to have a motion. I'll just call the question since, unless there's anybody else that has something that they want to say that we need to hear from.
To pass ordinance 2017-428. Proposal as is.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further comment or discussion?
So that leaves the chamber director as a non-voting member and the Milton Historical Society director a non-voting member. Is that correct?
Correct.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. The motion carries. Item number 9, discussion and possible action on appointment of Herb Stinsky to the Community Development Authority.
This one's pretty straightforward. As discussed a few weeks ago, there is a vacancy on the CDA. Mr. Stinsky has provided since that time, has provided his application to serve on the CDA. Did you get any
Are we
others?
going to meet ever?
Never. Yeah.
We
are.
We discussed this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
We wanted to fill the vacancy, and then there was some discussion as to whether this new process should start before or after the election. And I could go either way on it, but we wanted to fill the vacancy at least, so we didn't have to bring somebody up to speed.
And we didn't have anybody else express any interest or fill out any applications or anything. But I guess just for my 2 cents, I think we should get started sooner rather than later, because there's lots of things to work on. So, Brian?
The question may be more for Mark than anybody else, but since it looks like you'll be either a member of the Ethics Committee, is that correct? And on the Ethics Committee, I don't know if you can be a part of any other committee.
He has indicated that he would step down from the Ethics Committee in favor of serving on this committee, I guess, if that's the right term.
I just wanted to
a little
verify that quick.
Yeah, that would.
Didn't want to make sure there's conflict there.
I'll make a motion that we approve Herb Stinsky on the CDA.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Congratulations, Herb. Discussion and possible action on a one-lot CSM along Sunnyside Drive for Handy Art Incorporated. This is something that came before the Planning Commission tonight, too.
Handy Art owns the building located at 365 Sunnyside Drive. The same owners of the Handy Art facility at 365 own the former fertilizer dealership supply building located at 311 Sunnyside. They've owned that building for a number of years. They've brought forth a proposal to construct a 30,000 square foot expansion to their Handy Art facility that would require the two lots to be combined in order to meet local ordinances. It would also require a demolition of the current and former fertilizer dealership supply company. As the mayor noted, this item came before Plan Commission along with the site plan for their 30,000 square foot expansion. The Plan Commission approved the CSM with a recommendation to the council for approval and also approved the site plan. So the final stage of that process would be for the city council to approve this certified survey map to allow that development project to move forward. So again, this would be combining two lots under common ownership to allow for development, a redevelopment of that site to occur.
Have the adjoining neighbors been informed and given their opinion?
There's no requirement to notify adjoining neighbors for a certified survey map.
I think you're thinking of the site plan.
Well, there wouldn't be a requirement to notify adjoining neighbors of the site plan either. It would only be for a conditional use permit.
I have a question. How does this affect the landscaping requirements? Because that was...
The certified survey map does not affect the landscaping requirements. The site plan would affect the landscaping requirements.
Okay, because as we all know, there were concerns when there were changes made on that lot initially. So my question is, with this change, is there more, of course, I'm sorry I didn't make it to the Plan Commission meeting in time, but is there more landscaping requirements with this setup, or is it just the same?
I want to be careful, and I'll answer your question, but I want to be careful. This is the certified survey map.
Right.
So the certified survey map does not trigger any kind of landscaping or anything of that nature. It's simply a certified survey map. It's taking two lots and legally combining them into one. So I just want to be careful. That's the item that's open for discussion, and that's the item that the council has authority over. So that's what the vote will be on. But to answer your question without straying too far, the site plan was reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission, and that addresses the landscaping requirements. And based on the site plan that was submitted, they met the landscaping requirements. They're not making any alterations to the back of the building or the back of the landscaping to the existing berm or the existing hedgerow that exists. So that will stay as is, pending any changes with their stormwater requirements that would be required by the state. So I want to answer your question, but also kind of keep it in context that, again, we're only talking about the certified survey map at this level.
And so, keeping in context, when would the neighbors be allowed to comment?
Well, again, with the certified survey map and with the site plan review, there is no public notification process.
Except for a meeting.
Except for at the Plan Commission level, which has already occurred.
So the meeting notices for Plan Commission would be their notification, if I'm understanding correctly?
Correct.
And the adjoining neighbors were notified?
No, they wouldn't be through a site plan process.
Okay, and when would they be notified?
There is no notification.
There is no comment?
There's no
period of comment?
No, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, and I don't want to deviate from what the ordinances clearly say. They have an opportunity to comment, just like any other citizen would have an opportunity to comment at any other time. But your question is when would they be notified?
Correct.
There's no notification requirement with a site plan or a certified survey map.
Correct.
Under this context, but they certainly could come to a Plan Commission or a city council meeting and speak at any time. So please don't.
I want to understand.
Please don't put words in our mouth.
No, I'm trying to understand the sequence because in my past history, I ran into this, and I want to be clear.
Yes, but what I want to be clear about is the insinuation that we have not allowed the public an opportunity to speak, and that is absolutely not the case.
No, that was not the insinuation. I didn't know when the timing was.
Yeah.
Is there any other further questions or concerns?
I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan for Handy Art located at 365.
Survey.
Survey? Okay. CSM? Okay. For Handy Art located at 365 Sunnyside Drive.
There's a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries.
This is just great. Another one of our industrial businesses is expanding. This is just
I'm
awesome.
sorry, I just was not prepared for the great count. Thank you for the levity. All right, item number 11. Discussion and possible action for continuation of legal services with Consini Law Firm as the city's attorney. And this would be 2017 to 2019.
Before you was a contract that we discussed during the budget process, and there was a slight increase for Consini's services for the 2017, 2018, 2019 process that we included in the budget. But the actual contract itself was never discussed by the council and signed by the mayor. So we wanted to bring this forward before we got too far into 2017. But this was the contract that was included in the budget.
That passed.
Correct.
Well, as I was, for the sake of transparency, for such a large fee, I would like to change the terms of the contract so that it can be sent out for a request for proposal in 6 months or a year, and not 2 years.
Well, it's 3 years.
Yep.
And so I think that we were very transparent about our budget process. We spent a considerable amount of time going over the budget, so I guess there wasn't anything that wasn't talked about or debated when we looked at the budget. So this is we talked about this. You voted on the budget. I think there was a tiebreaker maybe on the budget. And so we were very transparent, and we have always been transparent about our budgeting process. So we have already voted on it, and to then go back after we voted on the budget and say we want a different contract now seems disingenuous. So that's my concern, is that we're actually being less transparent if we publicly have hearings on a budget and vote on a budget, and then at a meeting in February we go back and say we want to change our terms of our budget or contracts that we voted on. That's my comment.
I would just add to that. Certainly the council has every right to go out to RFP for any professional service. It's not required. Professional services by state statute are not required to go out to RFP, but the council has every right at any time to bring an item to RFP. And yes, through the budget process, we included these numbers, but the contract is not then de facto agreed upon just because we put those numbers in there. So we do have the ability to do that. I think where I get a little troubled is, where is there a lack of transparency in this process as you see it?
I guess it's the 3-year process, because I understood that we were budgeting a year at a time.
Sure, but all contracts, or most contracts, run longer than 1 year. And simply because you agree to a contract that's longer than 1 year doesn't make it not transparent. So I don't want to, I want to be clear, because the press is here and we'll see this on YouTube. I don't want anybody to have the indication that we're not being transparent because the council is discussing a contract that goes beyond a 1-year period. I think that's an accusation that I think we should be clear on as to what the genesis of that accusation is, rather than just making a blanket statement. So can you elaborate on how you believe this is not transparent by approving a contract?
I honestly did not believe that it was for 3 years.
But that didn't answer the question. That didn't answer the question, though. What do you believe is not transparent?
The 3-year length.
But how is that not transparent? Agreeing to a contract that extends over a year, how is that not transparent? The terms are right here.
The terms are right here. It's February, and this was to start January 1st.
And we're agreeing to the contract now. But that wasn't your point. Your point was 3 years. The terms are all right here. The annual fee is here. So what is not transparent about this? Because that's quite an accusation to make. So what is not transparent about this agreement?
In the budgeting process, I misunderstood that we were talking about 1 year.
So
I still don't
I understand
it.
what you're saying is you didn't understand the budgeting process, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't transparent. And so I guess if there are specific concerns you have with Mark or his services provided, please be specific and share those with us. And Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah, thinking back to the budgeting process, I think at the time, we talked about the fees for 2017, but we also discussed the fact that it's part of a new 3-year contract. That's the way I understood it.
I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't hear that last statement. Can you say that again?
I said during the budgeting process, I know we discussed the fees to go on to the 17 budget, but I believe we also discussed the fact that that fee was part of a new 3-year contract.
Dave, I think I remember the same thing as well, that same discussion, that it was on a 3-year contract, and I actually think that by having it go out multiple years is actually makes it more transparent and easier to manage over time, because you know for 3 years just at the same rate and able to plan for it.
This wasn't the only contract that we talked about for over a year's time in the budget, because
We just approved a 5-year contract for our assessor. So I don't, if the council chooses to make every contract a 1-year process, that's a discussion we can have. No, and I wouldn't recommend that. And again, I just don't want there to be a perception that somehow there's happening here. If there was a misunderstanding on how a budget works, that's not a lack of transparency. That's a misunderstanding. Important because this accusation seems to be rather bold lately from one individual that there's not transparency. And as an individual who serves as kind of the chief executive, I'd like to know how those accusations are substantiated. Off-the-cuff comments about lack of transparency. That's an important thing for government to have. And if we're going to have that conversation, let's talk about it in a substantive way, as opposed to saying, well, I don't believe it's transparent because I didn't understand it.
In this conversation, several people have recalled that it was for a 3-year contract. Therefore, I find that you are absolutely correct.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve continuation of legal services with Consignee Law Firm as the city's attorney for years 2017 through 2019.
A second. There's a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We're not letting you leave, Mark. I just want to let you know.
Yeah, remember that retirement that you were talking about?
Let's forget those walks in the woods and fishing. Oh, that's right. It's a fee on a per word basis. Nice one, Maxine. Nice one. All right. Here we go. Number 12. Discussion and possible action on committee structures. So part of the reason this is on the agenda is because it's kind of been a long-standing thing that we've been doing to look at our committees and their roles and responsibilities. But it also came to the forefront because of the ruling that we cannot have quorums at committee meetings. So that brought us back to looking at, well, you know, several council members have been disappointed in that they can't observe certain committee meetings. And so we thought we would look at a couple of the committees that we had talked about. You know, maybe they should just be, those items should be brought to the whole city council. And, you know, so that's on the agenda for us to discuss tonight. We don't have to take action. But, you know, I think, Linda, you were on you were on the ad hoc committee, and if you want to elaborate on, because off the top of my head, I can't remember everything, all the recommendations from that committee, but this is one way that we could address it. I know, Nancy, that you were concerned about not being able to attend those committee meetings too, and Maxine. So, at the council's concerns, and we like to address the concerns of the council. We may not all agree on the solutions, but at least talk about it. So Linda, if you want to just review some of the recommendations or things that we talked about.
First, let me just say that it was actually after our conversation after the last city council meeting that we were going to look for ways that we could possibly be able to be a part of those meetings, at least by observation. And one of the things that can always be done is you can always pay somebody to come in and record things, but then you've got space issues, and then you've got time issues, as Inga's shaking her head there.
And money issues. Money.
And always money, because somebody has to be paid. So one of the things that I was thinking about was, why can't we start our meetings at 6:30? And those three committees, Personnel and Finance, Public Works, and Public Safety, those three committees that we left as all council members, meet at that time at 6:30 as an agenda item, so that we can all be present for those discussions. And you know, of course, the results and the recommendations were actually for all of these committees was, except for Personnel and Finance, was to reduce it to one council member and add 2 citizens. But that was something that some of you didn't want to do, so this was an idea that I thought would work out so that we can be a part of these meetings. I am a meeting attender, as you all know. And I feel that it's very important to be at those meetings. I think it's important to hear those discussions and what is being said and what is not being said. Because somebody might say something that maybe I wasn't thinking of as a council member, or vice versa. Maybe I'm thinking of something that somebody else isn't thinking of. I don't want to put the city in a place where we are leaving ourselves open for lawsuits. So, you know, the recommendations of the ad hoc committee was that we eliminate the Personnel and Finance Committee because of the city finance director and Inga's position in HR and personnel matters. The recommendation was 2 citizens and quarterly meetings for the Public Works Committee. And then for Public Safety Committee, that recommendation was to replace it with the community forum. So that's a review of what we talked about. Can you think of anything else, Larry? I thought that it was pretty well summed up there. So, I mean, if we were coming here to City Hall to come to, say, Personnel and Finance, we're going to be here at 6 or 6:30, and at 7 o'clock the council meeting is going to start. So, in order to make it so that everyone can be a part of those discussions, in the event that we do have citizens come in, which does happen occasionally, that way we're prepared, and we can also be a part of those.
So it sounds like, if I can recap what you're saying, either we change the structure of the committees to 2 citizens and 1 city council member, which still doesn't change. I mean, you still cannot have a quorum of the city council at those meetings. or, and one way we tried to address this was just having committee reports, but I think people felt like maybe that wasn't enough to just have a committee report, or to actually eliminate those 3 committees and bring those items, or have the public safety forum quarterly, and then follow the recommendations and just bring all those items to city council. Or if there's another idea, I mean, obviously this is just what we have right now. We're open to those. We could send it back to the ad hoc committee and have them reconvene and see if they can come up with any other solutions, or we can just keep everything as the status quo. So, and we don't have to vote tonight, and we can think about it and bring it back to the next meeting, and maybe we can have staff outline the 4 options. And send you an email and then give you a couple weeks to think about it. So those are just my thoughts.
Maybe something to look into is to moving the committee reports towards the front of the agenda so that we hear the report before we have all the meat of our agenda, so that if it has any effect upon what we may decide, we can hear it in advance rather than after the decision. So it might not hurt to have that in the beginning of the agenda before, maybe around the time of the consent agenda, just have those committee reports just so we can hear what the committees have said before topics come up.
And I'm just looking for everybody's thoughts on, so that's certainly, that's something that we can do right away, next meeting agenda, move the committee reports up.
And one of the other things that I just want to point out, we did talk about this earlier in the year, and the ad hoc committee talked about it last year at this time when we were working on all of these requests that the council wanted to have addressed. One of the things to keep in mind is that we still have city people that are doing agendas, they're doing minutes, they're coming for meetings that are maybe not that long. And I don't feel like that's a good way to utilize our city staff. Every single position that we have in the city, all of our department heads, let me rephrase that, all of our department heads, everybody here at City Hall has got a specialty that they are in. We have a finance director to take care of any concerns and bring it to the council, which he's going to do anyway, because we all look at the financial stuff anyway. We have a police chief that, he's giving the same reports that we're getting, that we could just read even in our packets sometimes. And if there are discussions, like I said before, I'm missing out on those discussions. And so I don't know what's going on, if there was a rash of burglars or, whatever. And Scott does a great job of just giving us that information during the reports at the end of the meeting. So I think if we, go back and relook at those things that were originally pointed out with these committees, just put them on the agenda. Let's start our meeting at 6:30, and we're all there. There is no violation of any laws. Am I correct, Mark? I think I am.
Typically, there's no violation.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what proposal you're discussing right now, but if you're discussing a proposal that would have, say, a joint meeting of 2 or 3 committees and the common council, as long as it's so noticed, then that's correct. There would not be a violation.
That's not what you're saying, though, aren't you? Saying eliminate those committees and then just have those items come to city council, and city council starts at 6:30.
Right.
All right. If you want to eliminate the committees and instead have the items addressed directly by the council, that's correct. That's permitted. You're not required to have most of those committees. And municipalities do, as a practical matter, they don't generally want to handle every single thing at a council meeting, but you can choose which ones are necessary and not. And if you find that, example, 3 or 4 are not necessary, you can choose to eliminate those committees. And if you want to start your meeting earlier, that's up to you. And if it's noticed appropriately with those agenda items, yes, that's certainly appropriate.
A component of that we would need to amend the ordinance. So that would be the key component of that. That would need to be part of the process in order to make that happen. And that amendment would be to eliminate those 3 committees as she described. So that would be the only piece I would add.
Well, and so in order for us to be able to participate in these things that are brought to these specific meetings and be able to discuss it, is there another alternative, Nancy? We were talking about that transparency.
We were trying, I was concerned about not being able to see the discussion, because sometimes that's quite interesting.
Oh, right.
And how this could be worked with.
Yeah.
And
But you're
if
only
this sounds
talking
like
3.
a worked with, it would be at least interesting to explore.
Yeah.
So,
You're only talking 3 committees.
Right.
And what about tourism, historical, and the fire commission?
you're just out of luck.
Really?
Well, I mean, on those, for right now.
Yeah, can you enlighten me here a little bit? When that report came down from the state, does that include sitting in the audience as a spectator and not participating, just to gather information, or participating?
And unfortunately, it's the former of your 2 descriptions. It would be, you're not allowed to be in the room while the meeting is commencing. Whether that's an active or a passive member of the audience is from the ruling standpoint, or I should say opinion standpoint, is it's irrespective of that.
After all these years, find out that as a tax-paying member of this city, I cannot attend some of those meetings as a spectator. It's baloney.
Well, you can't as an elected city council person. You can as a public person, but not as somebody that's elected as city council.
Of this city.
Yep, you do have dual citizenship.
I thought that's why we always had at the bottom of the page of an agenda that there could possibly be a quorum at every meeting.
Well,
and I thought that made it legal.
That wasn't always there. I know that was something I asked to have put on there because I knew from the county level that we often are together as a group that has quorum, that has the ability to work on city business and not give parties or people that live here or citizens, Dave, to be able to attend and see what it is that we're doing. So whether or not you're sitting in this and participating and watching isn't really the relevant issue. Is the fact that it can be perceived as not transparent if we have 4 or more members together without proper notice.
So, I know it's different than what we. I'm sorry, did you want to repeat that, Dave?
Is that a motion? Yeah, I'll second that. You know I can't, I'd like to.
So, and I guess, like for right now, this is, the determination. It doesn't mean like maybe in a year or 2 or 3 or something, somebody else will give a different legal opinion. But for right now, it's the legal opinion that we're going to abide by, as we should. But the other thing that we could do, if you would like to do a little trial run, right? We could not have those 3 committees meet, right? And we could put those items on the agenda, and we could do this for whatever, 6 months, right? And then you can come back to it and say, is this process working? right? If it's not working, then clearly you don't want to go through the effort of changing ordinances. But if it is working, and you'll have new council members, then at that point you could change the ordinance. So you could just temporarily have those committees not meet and address those items, if that's something you want to do, right? We could do that, Mark, right? Temporarily, trial run.
Well, whether it's temporary or permanent, I guess won't matter legally, but probably, but I would want to check the ordinances to see what they have to say in terms of what authority they have or in what direction. I don't know if there's any prior resolutions of the council regarding that, about referring matters to committees before having them come to the council. So that may be the case, but I think it would be, before I said specifically, it would be a good idea for me to check with city staff and see when the ordinances say and whether there's been any resolutions, and then we would know that by the time that you would have your next meeting as to whether that's an option. It may be. I just would want to be sure of that.
Understandably so. Oh, we got you for 3 years.
Yeah, for a couple of weeks before we decide to do something like that.
Yeah, we'll let Mark study up on it, and he can shoot us all an email, and then we can put it on the next agenda, and you guys can think about it. And in between this meeting and that meeting, if you come up with other ideas or you have questions, just email me or email Al or Inga, and then we can forward those questions to Mark or answer them ourselves. So does that seem like a reasonable option for tonight?
To explore all the different aspects, that sounds like a very good start.
Can I just mention one thing? Just from a practical standpoint, since I've been here, I don't think I've mentioned anything in public safety that I haven't actually also brought to this body as a whole. So I just want you to know that's just the observation that I've made in the 18 months that I've been here, is usually public safety nights, it's an exact duplicate of what I say at the Public Safety Committee is what I say as part of my committee report or part of my department head report for the large group. So wanted to make you aware of that.
I think it's safe to say the same goes for public works.
You're not hiding anything from us at City Council, right?
By law, and by simple law, the same thing applies for personnel and finance. So those committees have unilateral or ultimate authority on any of those actions.
Can I just say that, I take this very seriously, not being able to hear the discussions that take place at these meetings, because there is really a lot that you come out. I know you're laughing at me.
I told you all you could send your husbands or significant others to take notes.
We were at the library the other day and they had a little robot. You could drive with your phone. So we would have to look into whether that constitutes a quorum or not if we had Linda robot in. Inga knows what I'm talking about. Oh, Linda knows what I'm talking about too. So,
We need a demonstration.
Yeah.
That robot
I
needs to
wish
come
Lisa
to the
was
next
here.
City
Yeah.
Council meeting. Another option to explore, because we are creative here. Don't let anybody accuse us of not being
I
creative.
think we need to get an extra battery pack for Linda though.
We do VR, virtual reality.
Yes.
So you can sit in the middle of the meeting too.
Yeah.
That feel.
Yeah. We're all just holograms anyways, right? All right, so we'll have this on the next agenda. Thanks for the great discussion. Dave, your comments are well taken. And our next meeting is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2017 at 7 p.m. Are there any general items? Okay, moving right along. Oh my gosh. I know. Oh my gosh. Oh my god. It's a first. Okay. No.
Dave, you have one?
No, I said move on.
Dave, you are so vocal tonight.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay, all right, so we are going to move on to team building. And you guys might have already seen this, so I'm totally stealing, plagiarizing, whatever you want to call it, from the internet. All right? And it's fake news. It is not fake news. We are not fake people, and we are a real city council. So, I thought this was kind of an amazing exercise that I saw where they brought in groups of strangers and everybody was on the outside of the room, and it was everybody from different walks of life. It was, gang members. It was, people that worked in public safety. It was people that worked in the medical field. It was, it was people that didn't look like you, people that didn't necessarily talk like you. So it was this great, diverse group of people. And so it was a little experiment. And so what they did would they be like, so if you, own your own home, walk into the middle of the room. So everybody from all these diverse areas, would walk in the center of the room, and people could see, well, wow, hey, that guy, that has maybe tattoos up and down his arms. I would never have thought that he was a homeowner, right? And then they would go back out to the sides of the room, and then a different category, would be announced, and then different people would walk into the room. And then pretty soon, everybody could visually see and experience that really we're more alike than we are different. And stereotypes do not define who people are, or the way they look, or the color of their skin, or the way they talk, or what country they came from. That is not what, defines us. So we're going to do a little experiment, and thank goodness Dave is so vocal tonight, because he's going to have to voice himself into these categories. And everybody else, I'm just going to have you raise your hand. I was originally going to have you all stand up, but I thought, well, if you want to stand up, you can stand up or raise your hand. So, are you guys ready? And, this takes the pressure off of you, and it puts it all on me for team building tonight. You can thank me later. So, raise your hand if you have children, or say yes. Kids, children. See, and we drove the courier away. We could have done this at the beginning of the meeting. So let the record show that everybody has a kid, or two, or some of us have three. All right. Raise your hand or say yes if your distant relatives came from a foreign country.
How distant?
How distant?
Well, anybody distant.
Well, I mean, if you go back
Oh,
to the days.
we're all families of immigrants. All of us. Let the record show. All right. I'll try not to cry. Raise your hand or say aye if you or a family member have been affected by cancer. Have been affected by cancer. You or a family member have been affected by cancer. Let the record show that overall, most of us have had a family member, or we have been affected by cancer. Raise your hand or say aye if you are a member of a church. Not that you attend, just that you're a member. Let the record show the majority of us are members of a church. Raise your hand or say yes if you've traveled outside of the United States. Linda's gonna need to go on a trip.
Really? Wow.
Canada, Mexico, Illinois. Let the record show Linda's gonna go to a conference somewhere out of the country. She may not be let back in, but we're sending her. Raise your hand or say aye if you graduated from a technical college or a four-year college. Let the record show the majority of us have. Raise your hand if or say yes if you are a lifelong distinguished resident of Milton. Come on, Maxine. You're not lifelong?
I wasn't born here. I grew up here, but I didn't. No, I was 18 when I came to.
Let the record show we are all transplants. For those of you up for re-election.
I mean, that no one.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Raise your hand or say yes if you or a family member was or is a member of the military. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. Raise your hand or say yes if you are a Packer fan. Oh! Let it be known that this is a Packer nation. All right. Raise your hand if you eat candy or say yes. And this is why we're not doing a wellness plan for the city of Milton. Okay, raise your hand or say yes if you love winter. Oh, we are, really, this is pretty good. You are not winter haters. Wow. I'm not a hater, but I'm not loving it. I'm not a winter lover. Okay. Raise your hand or say yes if you personally have called, emailed, or contacted any one of your elected officials ever in your lifetime.
Yes. We just talked to you today.
That does not count. We are all politically active. Good.
I emailed
Good.
all of you.
All right. I know. Shh. We're not going to be transparent about that. Okay. Raise your hand or say yes if you have a hobby. Come on, Mark. You're wandering in the woods all the time. No. All right. Last but not least, raise your hand if you have laughed today. Woohoo! It's unanimous. We are a fun-loving group of people. All right, back to reality and committee reports. What do you guys got? Anybody want to go first? And we will accept that report of a non-report. Right?
Historic preservation, we are working on our goals for the next 2 years and have kind of worked our way through them, and we discuss them again tomorrow, as well as looking at some type of a training for people around the area that we're be unveiling maybe the next city council meeting. I'll kind of mention that then.
This is the year for training and workshops. Who's next?
Public Works. Public Works has had no snow. We thank you, Howie. You've done a wonderful job.
Any other committee reports?
The library is moving along a lot quicker than everybody thinks it is. You will notice as you're driving by there is action going on the first and second floor of the library. We will be determining the grand opening of the library at our next meeting. We are talking about our food truck rally. And I also want you to know, I think that we've had it in several of our reports from the staff, but we have a bike mobile coming to town as part of our new library also.
Cool. Any other staff committee reports?
Yes. Do you want to do tourism?
Well, I don't. Okay.
The
thank you later, Maxine.
The tourism committee finalized the paperwork for nonprofit organizations to use if they choose to do a donut in our city commercial.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on to staff reports. I think, right? Are we all done with? I want to make sure everybody got their committee reports in. Howie, since I didn't make you go first with team building, you can go first with staff reports.
Oh, okay. Not much out of the ordinary, but we did have a little bit of snow. And just as ordinance enforcement, we had to send out 105 letters to people that didn't shovel that inch of snow. And it froze on the sidewalk, so it was very dangerous to walk on, but they got lucky and it melted. But once you get your first letter, that's all you get for the year. So after that, if you don't shovel it, you're not gonna get another letter. But 105 at one time is really a lot. It's close to 10% of the whole town that didn't shovel their sidewalks. So, but it just, if people would just keep, taking care of things. So we're trying to be more proactive on ordinance enforcement this year. So,
I'm sure the residents appreciate that too.
well, it's
At least some of them that walk.
well, no,
to
they
school.
don't appreciate falling down. That's the thing. And then like Linda said, we're helping the library so they can maybe get open by February, the end of February. So.
Who else do we have? Chief?
I completed my first hiring process, almost completed. Maybe not completed, but well on the way. We conducted, since we met last, we conducted interviews with 10 semifinalists, which yielded 5 finalists that went to the police commission last week. We certified a list of 4 candidates for an eligibility list. I have made a selection off of that list, and we're currently doing a background investigation in anticipation for a 2-week notice from a current employee that should be coming anytime now. So we're moving ahead on that, and that's all I have tonight.
Inga, do you have anything?
So new this year, we're doing a newsletter with all of the water bills that are going out. It's typically going to be about 2 pages, and it's going to be timely information that people should be getting with their water bills. So watch for it, and we'd like any feedback that the community has on that.
Perfect. Thank you. Alana?
Coming up this next week, public testing of the election equipment will be on Tuesday, February 14th at 10 a.m. Open to the public if anyone is interested in seeing how that works. In-person absentee voting has been taking place and it will continue to be open until Friday, February 17th at 5 p.m. The spring primary is going to be on Tuesday, February 21st, which is why our meetings were postponed or made into Wednesday for the next meeting. And finally, the Wisconsin DOT said that the first license plate renewal notices that will include our new local registration fee, also known as a wheel tax, will be going out in the next couple of weeks. So if you start getting phone calls on that, that's why it's there. It's going to actually start showing up in people's mailboxes.
Dan? No Dan. Al?
This Thursday and Friday, well, actually starting tomorrow, but I'll be attending the Governor's Conference on Economic Development in Milwaukee. I didn't go last year, but I went the year before, and probably the previous 7 years before that. But
Okay. Good.
Have fun.
Let's see. There's a couple things I was going to say. I got an email from a resident, and he asked that I not use his name, but the initial email was that he was very, very frustrated with the water bills going up on top of the wheel tax, on top of the school referendum, and he had mentioned that he might sell his house. So I did email him back, and I did ask him to come in, meet. We'll answer any questions that he has. And he did email me back, and he said, you know what, I was just really frustrated, and thank you for your response. and I can afford to stay here. So, but not that he isn't still frustrated. So I think it's important that I share that type of feedback with you.
Has anybody else heard anything on the water bills?
Yeah, I stopped using water. So, the second thing, and it'll be in the Courier in my column. So I'm working on this workshop because I wanted to do something nice for the city. And it's a workshop on respectful communication. And I've been talking with churches, and I have talked with the school district, and I'm going to talk with the chamber to see what level they would like to participate or sponsor. But it's a workshop that the Diversity Action Team has put on several times, and so I wanted to bring it to the city of Milton and open it up for free to anybody that wants to come. I thought this would be a good time since there's lots of communication going on about different subjects nationwide, worldwide, within the city of Milton. And there's people that we work with, or our family members, or our neighbors, that we have really strong differences of opinions. And we should be able to talk with them, and we should be able to still have a relationship with them. So that's coming up, and I'll let you know when the date is. And I think we're going to have it at the Milton House, and it will encompass respectful communications, regarding anything and everything, and with people that look like you and people that don't look like you, or your neighbor, or whatever the case may be. And I'm really excited to bring this to the city of Milton and invite all of you to come, and we will notice it if all of us say we're going to go. But I would love for you guys to come to that, and I'll let y'all know the details of it. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Maxine's ready. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The motion is unanimous. We'll now go into closed session. Do you guys need a 2-minute break? 3-minute break? Yeah. Let's reconvene at 8:40.